Welcome back to Success is Weird and Messy. I'm your host, Kathleen Gabriel. Every week, I talk with entrepreneurs about their businesses, the obstacles they faced, and the changes they've made. With me today is Alina Stancu, the founder of the Orange Notebook and a brand identity expert. Alina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Kathleen. So great to see you.
Of course, it's always good to talk to you. To start us off, tell me about the Orange Notebook and about your work.
Yeah. So, first of all, we're based here in the UK, even though we do a lot of work with the US customer base and we network a lot in the US. This has kind of been our story for the past 5 years since pretty much we started, because we started in the middle of a pandemic. There was nowhere really to network locally. And so to us, the world was kind of our oyster, but it was also, okay, we got to start from nothing, from zero. And so I started with we networked on social media and then through word of mouth got our first few clients in the States. And from there, to us, it always made a lot of sense because we fitted really, really well with the US type of customer. So that's really the fun and quirky fact about us. We are a growth strategy, marketing and branding firm. We're quite small as a team. We've got 8 consultants on our team and a small team of 5 to support us. We're small and mighty, I like to say, because we help a lot of businesses, small to medium size, with their rebranding efforts, with their turning their brand strategy into a good marketing strategy. And more recently, we've gone a lot more into the whole revenue growth, sales channels, sales process type of strategy work, which we've enjoyed a lot. It wasn't quite the happiest way to come about that kind of work, but in the end, I'm grateful for all the things that happened that led us to where we are now.
And I think that that's a pretty common journey story, which is, you face something that's a lot of friction, that causes a lot of strife maybe in your business, and you have to make some tough decisions. Maybe that's in your business offering, maybe that's in just the way you do business, who you do business with, whatever it is. What was the friction that was your turning point?
So, obviously, when we started, our expertise was branding, marketing, public relations. That's kind of where we spent our entire corporate life straight after university. What we did not know was sales. So, what we did was we took the approach that we take for everything in our business life, and that was to go to the experts. So we're like, okay, well, we don't know. Somebody else is going to know this. Let's find an expert. And with that, unfortunately, we got scammed, not once, but twice.
Oh, oh
And
boy.
in the end, in the very end, it sort of led us to us kind of learning how to do it ourselves and then getting really, really good at it, so much so that our clients value us for this type of work as well now. Um, in the first instance when we got scammed, it was we were year one in business, so we
Yeah.
didn't really know a lot. We were looking for a lead gen company. We found one in the networking community we were in. It was an £1,800 scam, which for a business, starting out, it's quite a significant investment to begin with.
Yeah.
And they had promised the 8 to 10 leads, which felt like a reasonable amount of leads, really, to
Oh,
enough to
absolutely.
make you
And you're
trust.
in, like, the idea was you were investing in this, and that seems like a very reasonable investment of, okay, if I invest this, I'll get more, I'll get more business,
Yeah,
I'll generate more money.
yeah.
Excellent. Perfect idea.
And we've always we've kept this throughout our business. We still we still invest. We still choose to invest for our growth because I don't see how else you can grow. But sadly, at that time, the person that did that service, they had delivered just a couple of intro calls. And then when we were trying to reach out to tell them, these people don't actually know what they're in a call with us for. So
Yeah.
they're taken a little bit by surprise. And that's not really a lead as such. And that's not what we've agreed upon. And at that point, she completely ghosted us. And then from there, we went with lawyers. We recovered about half the money, but you know, it was a painful experience.
No, that's honestly better than lots of people, are able to do in those kind of circumstances, because a lot of times you pay your money and you hope and you kinda get what you get, and you trust that these people who are meant to help you grow your business, that you have, paid for services, because that's what we're both in the business of, is providing additional support to businesses who need services like ours. And so you feel like, all right, well, I'm going out into the world and finding similar people. But then you find, well, not so much actually. So it's great that you were able to recover about half of it.
Yeah, I credit myself with being a little bit relentless in that sense. I'm not the type of person that would just part with it and be okay with, oh, well, it's a loss and that's it.
Yeah.
Because we work really hard for that. And as I think it sort of also makes us so invested into our clients' success and making sure that they make the most out of the investment they get, because you work really really hard. You do a lot of sacrifices as a business owner. You take on a lot of risk, and when somebody, well, quite honestly, takes the piss with that, it's very very painful. So that's why I'm not the kind of person that would just let it go and be okay with, oh well, I've lost, win some lose some. I'm not like that. There aren't many, and a lot of people don't want to deal with the conflict, and it is hassle, it is a headache, it is a pain in the ass. But sometimes you just, it does not feel right to let it go. So
Yeah. Oh,
it
absolutely. And so now that, you've gone through more time, you have more experience and you've able to partner with different people, how do you evaluate new service providers so that you feel more confident that they are going to actually provide the service that you're looking for? And also, how do you pitch to your potential clients so that they know that you're for real?
off the back of that first sad story.
Mhm.
We had to figure it out and we had to do it ourselves. That taught us how to do our own outreach. So we created our own system, our own process for generating our own leads, for then converting. We're very, very strong conversion ourselves because we had to be. We learned all of that. But then there was another time when we went to build the whole process a little bit away from us. So we were trying to, okay, well, now we figured it out. How do we do this in a way that's not attached to us? And that kind of brought us to the second time we got scammed. But to answer your question first, how do we figure it out? Well, it turns out we didn't figure it out all that well in the sense of who's a good fit, who's not a good fit. What happened the second time, we didn't listen to our own intuition. We didn't listen to our own gut feeling. We went with, we need this thing, we need this service. And then there were some red flags there that we chose to ignore. So to begin with, this was a very new business, very early, 4 months in, and we had a desire, because it's one of our values, we had a desire to support new female-led businesses because we were there once too. And so we ignored the fact that she was super early on. We asked for some social proof she can provide. Not that she can provide, she promised she would and then never did. And we let that slide. And that's, if you like, that is one thing that we're never ever going to compromise on. Because even if you are super new in business, you should at least have done some work with friends with at lower costs, at just to prove your service, because we've been there doing that. And if you can't give any kind of reassurance, then that will cause problems for anybody looking to put their trust into you. So there was that, and then the other thing was there was no consistency, so she wasn't following through with what she was saying she's going to do. And by this
Yeah.
point, we've learned not to take on clients like that, not to take on any collaborators or any partners or any service providers or any team members that would ever act like that. So, testimonials and keep your word essentially. Do what you say.
No, that I think that's a huge lesson that anyone in business has to really take to heart, which is no matter what part of the process is, vetting is huge. You don't want to take on any client. You want to take on the clients that will work for you. And that goes back to even when you're desperate for cash, even when you're just starting out, you don't have anyone. Taking on the wrong client in the moment feels like the necessary thing to do, and then you get bogged down with work that is less profitable, that is less fulfilling, that is less repeatable, that is the wrong fit for your business, and that can take a few cycles to figure out. Because often when we first start out, what exactly is the focus that we're seeking? And you may do a few pivots that way. So I absolutely see from what you're talking about, taking that one, or two, I guess, scam experiences of realizing, oh, this was a lack of vetting for the service provider, and bringing it out into we need to vet everyone that we're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. From now on, that's an absolute non-negotiable. And
Yeah.
you've asked how do we bring that proof, that credential to our clients when we pitch? Well, exactly that way. So, first of all, we present all of our solutions. We make sure that's tailored. We make sure that the client is creating alongside with us. It's not an imposed solution, so we're agreeing at every point. But then we also make available video testimonials from real clients. We also make available case studies. And if they choose, if they want that, we can also facilitate an introduction to one of our clients or two, depending on who's available at the time. So because we've created these like years long relationships and partnerships with our clients, we're more than happy and confident to say, yeah, you can actually meet with X, Y, and Z because I know they'll be happy to meet with you. When we do that, when we can present all of that proof, when we have all of this and we show you how the solution works and we ask, are you agreeing with us? Is this the thing that makes sense for you? Then that to me is like that's complete clarity over how we work, what the results look like.
And honestly, I think that's one of those things that starts the business relation off in the most positive way, is saying, I have confidence in what I can do. I have people who can vouch for me and say, this is the results that I got from working with these people. This is what I'm doing. And that's huge. So you're the branding expert. You've become a sales expert through
Mm-hmm.
the course of being in business.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned that you've grown out your team in this time. What is the difference between the business being just you and your partner starting out? When did you figure out, oh, we need more help, we need more hands on board? And how has the business changed by having employees and consultants working under you?
It took a while because when we started out, we did not know what we want. I think that's quite common with a lot of business. So we started off, we kind of did the work, got some clients, hope we did well, we did more work, become more clients, so on. Sort of grew a little bit around us. And then I think it was year 3 or 4 when we sat down and we're like, okay, what's the vision? Because we never had a vision up until then. And we created our vision and we figured out, okay, well, we need to cover these roles and we need to cover these roles so that it's not just us doing this. And that was on the business, on running the business support type of roles. And then we're like, again, we want these type of projects and we want to expand in this area because this is looking good for us. What type of specialist support do we need there, so that it's not always just us delivering. And that's kind of how the expanding on the team took shape, from that desire, from that, okay, well, our vision is to grow to this point, and our 10-year long vision is to grow to that point. Well, how are we going to work in reverse? How are we going to do that? Well, if we're going to want to do that, then these roles need to be covered. So that's how it took place. Off of that, I've always been really good and really happy, and it felt good to network. So I created like really long relationships. I mean, like 3-year long relationships with people. And so for me, it was easy enough to go and find the right experts for these type of roles. And then we could create partnerships. So we partner on a type of offer. We could create these partnerships in order to basically for everybody to win something out of this. So we created agreements. Matching the experts is always based on shared values. And we always look at the same values to be reflected in the partner that we're going to work with, because that's more important than skill set. It's more important than, I don't know, stage they're at in the business or anything else. If you have the right values, you can create around that with the right process, with the right tools. You can. If you don't have the values, if that does not match, or if they're at opposite points, you're not going to be able to find consensus to create anything.
And that is something that I hear from more and more people,
Yeah.
is really making that match of defining your values, figuring out what it is that you're looking for. I did find it interesting that you said that you didn't have a vision for the first 3 years, and I don't think most people admit to that, as true as that is, because it's when you're first in business, your vision is to literally be in business.
Yes, the first few years are to survive. And you know what? As a branding expert, I'm gonna come out with a very unpopular view to not invest a ton of money in your branding for the first 3 to up to 5 years. But for the first 3 years, just don't. Why? Because I always say this. um, it's like putting Chanel on a baby. The baby's gonna grow, and unless you're Kim Kardashian and you want to drip that on Chanel, fine, great. But the baby's going to grow, so you're going to need to keep changing clothes. Your business, for the first 3 years of its life, and there are very few exceptions, but for the first 3 years of its life, it's going to go through so many different iterations. You're going to have to pivot in response to what the client wants. You're going to have to pivot in response to what you figure out you want. You're going to have to pivot in response to, if there is a vision coming up, in response to what that vision is going to look like. You're going to have to pivot based on what the market looks like. You're going to have to pivot in so many different ways. And if at any point, and this is almost a guarantee, you run out of money, you're going to have to pivot in response to running out of money. So, for the first 3 years, there's going to be so much up and down. If you want to create a brand, you're going to have to create a brand that either can be easily adapted with your changes. So you can always redo the offer. You can always change your website pages. So you can do that. And we've done that, by the way. As branding experts, we've changed and changed and changed. But we can
Yeah.
do that because
Yeah.
we have the team in house, we have the expertise, right? But we changed pages. And right now we're in the middle of a change, by the way. So we're changing all the time. And if you make a huge investment, let's say you make a 10, 15K investment in your brand in those first 3 years, which is a significant investment for a proper branding exercise. But you haven't figured out how to generate sales. You haven't figured out where's your revenue coming from. You haven't figured out if that's consistent revenue that's going to come. Then you are paying out of pocket potentially. You are paying for a service, for an asset that for that particular time being doesn't actually bring you the sales. with very few exceptions. Yes, there are product-based businesses. Yes, we're talking e-commerce. Yes, we're talking the type of Apple that will have investment money, starts with this type. That's a different story. So we're not
Yeah.
talking the select few or those that build unicorns ready to pitch them for investment. That's not it. But your typical service-based business starting out, the first foremost thing to learn is how to generate revenue consistently. Get sales in, because if you have sales in, you can then invest in your marketing to back up the sales, to amplify that, and then you can invest in your PR to back up your marketing to back up your sales. That's
Yeah.
how it goes typically. You don't have sales, you will invest in your marketing and you'll invest in your PR. It goes nowhere because you haven't figured out this bit yet.
Yeah, because my understanding is that branding and marketing leverage what you have for growth based on what you have. So it can multiply the sales that you already have, but you can't multiply a zero.
Yes, you nailed it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So first get the sales in and figure it out how you're gonna get that on repeat, because otherwise you're gonna invest in marketing or PR for the sake of doing marketing and PR, and you're gonna run out of cash so fast, and then you still don't have sales in, and you still don't know how to, and that marketing and branding you've just in or PR that you've just invested in has gone nowhere.
Yeah. And I think that that's one of those things that people really have to figure out genuinely, where are their potential clients? Where are their sales going to come from? Lots of people go into networking because that is a very effective way to meet people, grow your business. But like you said, find the people who are going to partner with you to provide services that you require in your business. But beyond that, also just find the people who are going to buy what you're offering. Honestly, if they're the right people, they're not going to care that at this stage of your business, your logo and your website and your branding isn't as shiny and clean as it could be. That's only going to really matter once you're in a bigger marketplace.
Exactly. And when you have enough revenue in the bank so that you can consistently invest in that, because marketing does require consistency, and your
Yeah.
brand does require consistency if you want to keep it visible at all times. But to go back to what you said, knowing your client, and for some it's networking, for others different tools. We currently have clients, so we have one client that is focused on building very close relationships. So that means she goes to very select networking events, and I mean very select, you count them on a hand. She builds connections with about 5 to 10 people. So that's the pool, very small pool of people that she constantly builds the relationships with. And she has a constant good flow of discovery calls coming from those referrals. We have another client that is in the pharma sector, and she works typically with super high level executives. So we're talking managing director, VP level, CEO level at these medium sized but also large corporate type of structures. And she does a mix of networking. She attends certain conferences, she attends certain events with a focus, but she also does outreach. So we have an outreach strategy, and this that's what she follows, because her network is full of these type of people that can refer her. So even if they're not the direct prospect, they're going to be one person away from the type of client she wants to work with. So that's what works for her. We have another client that does a mix of lead gen plus outreach, again, a different type of outreach, different strategy. And we focus very much on optimizing all of the conversations that are coming. So as soon as there's a conversation booked, because he has no problem generating those, the area of focus is how do we make the most out of this conversation? What does the decision maker need to hear in order to make a decision to move to the next stage, to move to a proposal, to move to scope of engagement, to move, whatever the need is. Each one of these people, so that's just a few examples, but each one of these people will have a different strategy, even though overall they will do the same thing, networking and some outreach at a very generic level.
And I think that that's part of those first years is really figuring out, well, what's my style? What's my strategy? What's the best way? Because again, when you're starting out, you may have this vision of, oh, I'm going to do exactly these things, and this is going to be exactly my offering. And extremely few people find that that's true. And you just find a different path. You find a new way of doing business. You find, in some cases, entirely new offerings, entirely new products, or in your case, expanding on what your products and your offerings are, because you didn't start out saying, oh, I'm going to become an expert in sales and be able to bring that to other people. In fact, I'm going to outsource that. And instead, necessity was, you know what, you're the expert now.
You know what? It's so funny. I was just checking out some of the videos, some of the testimonials that the team is like doing snippets of now. And one client was like, when I started with you guys, I was at 0 clients, and now I'm at 7 clients, and that was like a 3 month engagement for that particular client. And I was like, we doubted ourselves for so long that we know how to do sales that it didn't even cross our minds that that's a thing that we could do. But it actually it went the other way around. Our clients were telling us that we've helped them with this and we helped them with that. And since we started working, it took 2 weeks and I signed an ideal client. And it had to come from the outside in because we could see it. And then when we looked a little bit, we checked a few books, we talked to a few experts, and then we were like, you know what, actually I think we know more than we believe we do. And we do. Hence why we get these results. But no, it wasn't something that we set out with because uh, for the second time, when we went to build the sales function away from us, as in to have an outsourced team, that's really all we wanted, an outsourced team that could conduct the entire process. And we got scammed the second time. And honestly, we were so close to like giving up on trying to build the sales function. And we're like, okay, well, it's going to be stuck to us forever and ever. We don't believe that. We had a couple of months of frustration and had a good cry and had a good, swearing session. But then we're like, no, we're going to take the lessons again and we're going to move forward. And we are going to build this thing. I'm sure we will.
And that is something that every successful entrepreneur does, is you take a hit and you keep going, because if you quit, that's it. You're done. And sometimes taking the hit and keeping going can be shutting down the current business and starting something else. Sometimes it's realizing, oh, okay, this is something we need to take on for ourselves. And sometimes it's a new, I don't know, a new vetting process, a new something. But I think that's the story of every entrepreneur, is you just keep going.
You absolutely do.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think there's any other option, and I believe in that as well. You only fail when you stop trying, when you quit yourself. Failure doesn't come from the outside; it comes from, okay, I decided to stop,
Yeah.
and even that doesn't mean failure in every case.
Yeah. Well, Alina, I'd love to know, how do you define success?
Oh gosh,
I know it's a big question, but that's why I love asking people, is because everyone's got something different. And you've gone through all these different iterations of your company, all these different iterations of what you're doing in your career. What feels like success for you?
well, if you don't give up for long enough, what you encounter on the journey is you hit success in many different ways, not the expected ones necessarily, but it will take you to the next milestone and to the next milestone until you're going to be like climbing that mountain, you're going to be a little bit like here, let's say three-quarters up. And maybe it's not the success that you got to the peak, but you're three-quarters up.
Yeah. I what I see from that is there's always something more. You can say, I've reached the top of the mountain, and then you look up and there's a higher mountain. And if you look at life that way, you'll never reach the top of anything. Whereas if you look at it as, look how much I've achieved, this view is pretty amazing. That is a really good success.
My big long-term vision is to build this business to hundreds of millions. And I may get there, I may not, I don't know. I may die tomorrow. So, you never
You
know.
never know.
But people say, that whenever I share that, some people, they believe in it, some people don't, or depending whatever the filter is. But my answer to, we never know if we're going to get there. But have I got anything else better to do with my life than just try
Yeah.
and see where I get to in the process? Maybe I don't get to 100 million. Maybe I get to 99. I don't think that's failure.
I don't think that's failure either. I think that's pretty darn successful. Just keeping on trying. Yeah.
Keep on trying. Yeah, you don't stop.
Well, Alina, thank you so much for joining me today. Where should people find you online?
Thank you very much, Kathleen, for having me. You can find us online at theorangenotebook.co.uk, and also my name, Alina Stancu, on LinkedIn. I try to speak to anybody that pops into my inbox, so I'm more than open to have a conversation.
Wonderful. Well, we'll have all that information in our show notes. And thank you, everyone, for listening. You can find Success is Weird and Messy wherever you get your podcasts. And it helps us so much if you follow, rate, and review. And if you like the show, tell a friend. We'll see you next time.